Achievers. Today on the show we have Daniella Blechner, author of Mr. Wrong and the 7 Shades of Love. Welcome, Daniella. Daniella, tell us a little bit about which book comes first. Which book should we talk about first?
Let's go for Mr. Wrong.
Mr. Wrong. Tell us a little bit about Mr. Wrong.
Well, Mr. Wrong is a collection of stories written by women across the world who've encountered this infamous Mr. Wrong. But it also has success stories and stories from men to get their point of view too. It was inspired by, I think, part of it was my journey. I'll be honest, I've had a decade of dating disasters.
Haven't we all?
Haven't we all? Yeah. I'm not sure about a decade, but that makes me feel a lot better. So I just think sometimes when you keep on attracting the same circumstances, the same sort of people, the same negative situations, at a point where we have to journey within, it can't be everyone else's fault. So I've also got a lot of women in their late 30s, mid 30s who are kind, intelligent, vivacious, supportive, all these amazing things, great job, independent, but seem to be attracting the same sort of man. And so I just found it really interesting and set off on a quest to kind of explore why this was happening and what the patterns were, and create a platform for women to have, to share their experiences.
So don't you find that in all the women that you've spoken to, they say that it's something that stems out from childhood? Is that correct? That is something in our childhood that makes us attract that Mr. Wrong all the time?
I think there could be lots of different reasons. One of them could be childhood. I think, obviously our first experiences of love does come from our parents or our guardians or, whoever is looking after us at that time. And so that has an influence. Belief systems is a big part of it. And belief systems can be formed by our view of society or our view of the world or what society tells us. It could be, what people in authority tell us we are. And, I believe all of it sort of starts from self-love. And so if you're not kind of nurtured and given that love to start with, it makes it very difficult to then be with somebody because you're not a complete person, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. But could it also be that we have too much love, and we have that fatherly love, and we have that brotherly love, and we have the granddad love, and then we have got this perfect man in our head that we think, when I grow up, this is the kind of man that I want to be.
Yeah.
Do we maybe set standards for ourselves that may be too high that we end up with that Mr. Wrong?
I think so, definitely. I'm really interested in kind of looking over the kind of years of how women and men are sort of conditioned to play particular roles. Mm-hmm. Chapter 13 looks at the male perspective. I think it's one of my favourite chapters because I've learned so much through doing that. Mm-hmm. Fairy tales, I think, have a lot to answer for. Mm-hmm. For example, so many young girls are brought up or they grow up thinking, I'm going to be a princess and I'm not a full person until my knight in shining armour comes and takes me away and saves me from whatever distress I'm going through or whatever. Mm-hmm. Snow White, for example, she's given a poisoned apple, isn't she?
That's right.
And then, falls asleep, and then, the prince comes in and saves her. At what point does she say, what are your morals, what are your values, what's your name even? Yeah. Who are you? And I just think we are conditioned to think that we are not a whole person until we meet somebody else. And I feel that you have to come into a relationship as a whole person, knowing who you are, loving yourself before you can actually have something concrete with somebody else. Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge mistake. Sorry, Hans Christian Andersen. But equally, I think men have a lot of pressure in terms of they have to live up to a particular name, they have to be a particular person. That's right. And I just think there needs to be a lot more acceptance of who we are as humans and as people.
So is there a certain point in our lives that did you notice in all the other ladies that you're talking to, that you finally get to that point? Is there something that was common in all of them, a common denominator, that they finally realised what they were really looking for?
I think through finding Mr. Wrong. And I think the subtitle of the book is Learn from Mr. Wrong and Claim Mr. Right.
That's right.
I would also like to kind of throw out the idea that it's learn from Mr. Wrong and claim yourself. And I think when we claim ourselves, we have a better idea of who we are, what our needs are, what our wants are, what our desires are. And I've only really, really learnt that by experiencing what I didn't want to. Mm-hmm. And I think as a very free spirit, very independent person, I've gone into relationships, sort of a bit lackadaisical, not really that bothered, not even knowing what my own needs, wants and desires are until I experience what they weren't. And so I can only thank them for helping me to get to that, arrive to that journey. So in a sense, Mr. Wrong it's a positive book. It's about a learning experience. So yeah.
Would you also say that after we know ourselves and we've got to that stage in our lives when we know who we are and we're comfortable in who we are and we're comfortable in our own skin and we have clearly marked what we think our destiny line is when we can actually sit back and start attracting the right Mr. Right?
I think so, yeah, definitely. I think there's some exercises in the book as well. One of them is identifying our needs, wants and desires. And I've got my list as well, and I need to remind myself, and you can do it with anything.
Yeah.
You can do it with a job, you can do it with the kind of lifestyle you want, you can do it with the kind of health, every aspect of your life.
Yes.
Until you kind of know what you need, it's very difficult to actually attract that. So exactly as you're saying, I think there's a lot to be said about our thought patterns and our thought processes, and the more aware we can be, the more aware we become, the more open we are to kind of changing those patterns. People who say that they have bad luck and all these bad things happen to them, that can change at any point. The minute that you change your mindset, you start to attract positive things into your life.
Changing.
Definitely, yeah. I'd also like to add on to that as well. Forgiveness plays a huge part in that. There's a chapter on forgiveness, and you talk about childhood or adverse things happening to people at a young age, or even in past relationships. I'm a fundamental believer that until we get rid of all of that and we forgive all of that, we can then move on to a much brighter path.
Because we've cleared all the things that we don't need anymore.
Yeah.
So we don't refer back to them because now we're ready to step into the future.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And what's your favourite story? I know all of them are your favourite stories because they're in the book. But what's the one story that kind of comes to mind right now?
There's a couple. What I like about the book, and the contributors who are all absolutely fantastic, male and female, is there's some really funny dating stories and some really powerful stories as well of abuse, rejection, but overcoming that as well. I wanted to make it a very positive story. One of my favourites, I think, is called Dinner Date. And
sounds good.
Here we go, TV programme. This girl meets this guy at work, just not particularly interested in him, and he asked her to go out on a date. Repeatedly asked her to go out on a date. Eventually she was like, yeah, sure, let's go. Takes her out to a really sort of a top-notch restaurant, 3-course meal. She'd decided by this point, it's not really the one for me, but it's been nice, we've got on. And then it gets to, bill time, and she reaches for her wallet, about to pay half, and no, his reaction is, no, you don't need to pay, don't worry, I've got this, it's fine. On the journey back, he tries to, give her a sneaky little kiss, and she reproached, no, not interested. Fine, drove back in silence. Next day at work, she gets an email from him. So her thinking it's him saying, oh, I had a really nice time, blah, 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 whatever. As you would expect, wouldn't you? Or just brush that under the carpet, the fact that she's actively said to him, I think we're better off as friends, which she obviously has a right to do. He said, dear such and such, seeing as you only want to be friends, I think it's only fair that you pay your share of the bill.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
A refund.
That's it, a refund, yeah. So she obviously gave him an envelope with the required money in there. I don't think they ever spoke again. So.
Oh my gosh. My mum always used to say there was nothing like a free lunch.
And it shouldn't have to come at the cost of,
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't at all. We've moved on since then.
We have.
We're in the times of understanding.
Yes, we hope.
And so, Mr. Wrong, is it something that our male audience will enjoy to read?
I hope so. I've had quite a lot of positive feedback from the men who have read it. Some of them have said, I've recognised, there's different characters in the book, so some of them have said, I've recognised myself as this particular character.
Yes.
One of the characters is a Mr. Dreamer character, who kind of comes in with all these kind of fancy words, a bit like Hugh Grant. Fancy words, sweeps you off your feet, does everything at 100 miles an hour
that you dreamt of.
Yeah. But then after about 3 months, can't quite keep it up and just kind of he has to vanish because there's nowhere else to go. The energy's kind of all gone, so he just vanishes, and the woman's left broken-hearted. And in fact, in chapter 13, there is one of the male contributors a story called Mr. Dreamer Speaks Out, and he identified himself as this particular character. And what was interesting is he said that he loves women and he has the intention of wanting to have that relationship. It's the idea of it, and he says, I love you far too soon. He buys them flowers, he takes them out, does all these amazing things, and he wants to be the kind of best version of himself. And then he realises, I can't keep this up, and if she finds out who I really am, she's gonna reject me. And so he just vanishes doesn't even leave a message, just kind of vanishes because he can't cope with it all.
Do you personally think that men sometimes are under that pressure to be that prince and shining armour, so they have to come out at their optimum best and try and impress the lady so much that we push them away? Is it us that push them away? Is it them that are under the pressure?
I don't know. I think every circumstance is individual, I think, but I definitely think there's a pressure, society places a pressure on the man to be X, Y and Z, to have this great job, to have this amount of money, to have, all these kind of materialistic things in order to impress and win a woman. I think we're living in a bit more of an equal society, and a lot of these ideals or ideas are outmoded and not realistic.
In your personal experience, would you say that we are putting men under pressure, or men putting themselves under pressure to be that prince in shining armour?
I think every individual case is different. Different women, think about different things in terms of their needs, wants and desires. So for me, for example, respect is high up the list, trust, honesty, all these sorts of things. Whereas a lot of women I know, probably in the more 20s age now, it's, have they got a job? Have they got a car? I don't even know what the different types of cars are. But, I know women who know the car to an exact T that they want their partner to have or whatever. I also met up with a filmmaker a few days ago, and she said she lives in LA now, New York now. She said that she meets loads of American women, high flyers, doing well, achieving, earning money, and they go out on all these dates and they just can't find the right man, because the first thing they ask them on a date is, what's your credit score? I can't do American accents, I won't try. What's your credit score? What's this? And you push people away, because if you place your values on what the materialistic kind of side of it, you're going to get
someone else has acquired for themselves. There was something on Instagram I was reading the other day that said that women should stop being silly, that they go out with no money, expect to have drinks for all night, then expect to have a cab take you home and probably a takeaway on the way home.
I think that's funny you say that. I think there's like a balance. You've got, on that scale, the women who go out with nothing and expect everything. You've got women who are so I'm so independent, I don't want a man to pay. No, you're not paying for anything. Do you know what I mean? And I think we've got to strike that balance. And I read something on the blog about a year ago. A woman was on a plane and she was putting her bag on the overhead, whatever that thing is, carriage. And a man went to help her. No, I don't need your help. It's almost like saying,
I can do what I want.
I can do it. And I think we've got to be careful about kind of going this other way. And I think there's nothing wrong with allowing a man to feel like a man, to feel like they are having that kind of role in a sense. If I was to go out on a date, if somebody wants to pay for me and they've invited me to go out on a date, that's fine. I think there'll always be that thing of like, oh gosh, well maybe I'll get the popcorn or maybe I'll get the drinks, because I've always had that sense of independence myself, and so somebody paying for everything I don't feel that comfortable with. But
isn't it about just being comfortable, being relaxed and just going with the flow and not pre-planning the evening?
Exactly.
And do you also think that as women we've become more independent now, that we almost don't need men, because we think we're taking a similar role to what a man can do, because we earn our own money and we can come out to work. So sometimes we are intimidating to men?
I think that can be intimidating to men if they want that to be intimidating. I definitely am not of the volition that we can do anything a man can do. I'm definitely not of the volition that there's not a place for men. I think there is a place for a woman in their own right and a man in his own right. And although we have, dating back from, back to history, we have set defined rules. A man can't have a baby, and a woman doesn't have certain bits of anatomy
Yes.
that a man does. So I think it's about, and our energies are very different, and I think these energies are made to complement each other rather than to battle against each other. And yes, we are in an age where we have more opportunities in terms of work. You know, we're climbing the ladder more, we're earning our own money and all these kinds of things. But I do think that ultimately a man does have his role and a woman has his role, and we need each other. That's it.
And I guess that's the message that a lot of other women need to hear too, that two make one, and together is only how relationships can grow. But you also focus on the spiritual aspect on it in 7 Shades of Love, don't you? Tell us a little bit about it.
7 Shades of Love is a poetry anthology. As a lover of poetry, I wanted to combine poems together as well to reinforce the message of love and Mr. Wrong. It's set out to start with as a quest, looking at the idea of love. What is love? What are the different types of love? And ultimately, what is real love, unconditional love? And I think the seed was grown for both of them back in 2010, 2009 when I first started teaching. I asked my class of 14-year-old sort of teenage boys, what do you think love is? Yeah. Not expecting profound things to come out. Yeah, that girl, she's pretty fit, whatever. Yeah. And this young boy just kind of looked at me, just unblinking. Loving an imperfect person perfectly.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and that was the first thing he said. It was as if it was nothing, and I suddenly sort of stopped. Thought, oh my gosh, that's so true. And it doesn't just mean allowing someone else to love you imperfectly, or you loving someone else. It can transcend to you loving yourself perfectly with all your flaws and all your kind of quirks and all these things. And I think until that's what real love is, and until you have that, it's difficult to kind of give it.
To give what you don't know and don't have, and what you don't understand.
Yeah, that's it. And so I love colours, and I'm into like chakras and this sort of thing. So I thought, well, why don't I come up with a poetry book and have each sort of set of poems focus on a different colour. So looking at Eastern references to colour and Western as well. So what the different colours represent, and just have those poems fall under them, and then ending up with the violet colour, which is the more kind of true love, that unconditional love.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Brilliant. And so if you were advising the viewers on which book to read first, which one would you say they should go for first?
I would say go for Mr. Wrong.
Okay.
There's some really, really great stories in there, and what I love about that is it's a platform for us to share our experiences. I feel that myself personally, I don't share I would never expected myself to be doing this, and there's some of my personal stories in there too. Back in the day, if somebody asked me, how's this going with this person, I would say, oh no, it's finished, never mind, let's not talk about it. I never used to talk about stuff, and I think what I've learned through sharing stories and through talking about things and learning from each other, we create a platform where we kind of unify each other and empower each other.
Learn and grow.
Yeah, learning and growing, exactly. And the fact that it's got stories from men there as well, I've learned so much. Yes. So I would definitely say Mr. Wrong, and then if you like poetry, get them both, $14.99.
But if you get the 7 Shades, that means you've graduated from listening to the stories about Mr. Wrong, and then from then on you take all the positive aspects from it. You learn yourself, you grow within yourself, and you hear how others have now claimed they're Mr. Right.
Yes, yeah.
And then just to fulfill it, now you're in love, and then 7 Shades of Love.
I like it. You should sell them for me.
I'm available for hire. Fantastic. And so how do people contact you?
You can get signed copies at my website, which is www.daniellabblechner.com. That's www.daniellabblechner.com. There's also a blog where you can get the books, www.dingdongitsmrwrong.com. There is also a book tour coming up between the 12th and the 14th of February in various libraries, Waterstones as well, where you can buy your own book and get it signed, and there'll be some special deals there as well.
Daniella, please do tell the viewers at home, in the offices, wherever everyone else is watching you from right now, the advice that you can leave us with and how we can better ourselves in order to be able to welcome the other person into our lives?
What I would say is that nothing is wasted time. Every seeming adversity or every seemingly negative experience is an opportunity to learn, to grow, to evolve. And I think if we can look at the positives in every situation and look at it as a chance to move forward to the things that we do want by experiencing the things that we don't, it can only be a positive thing. I think also identifying our needs, wants and desires brings us closer to who we are. Knowing ourselves, knowing our worth is important. And lastly, forgiveness. I just think the more that we can love, bless and release negative things that happened in the past gives us a much clearer and positive path to move forward into. I just want to finish on a quote from Marianne Williamson on forgiveness. Forgiveness is a choice to see people as they are now. When we're mad at people, we're focusing on something they said or did before this moment. By letting go of the past, we make room for miracles to replace our grievances.
Wow. Daniella, thank you very much for being with us today on The Extraordinary Achievers. We appreciate women like yourselves that are coming out, inspiring us all, and most of all, reminding us that forgiveness is key in our lives. We have to find ourselves, and when we find ourselves, then we can find Mr. Right. Thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching today. Onwards and upwards, united we shall soar to greater heights than that known by mankind. There is no victory without any story. Testimonials are a way to inspire and encourage others. The infinite power, the master of the universe, our creator is God, and through him all things are possible. Thank you for watching today. Please share this video with others. We need to make the sound of positivity viral. For more of our updates, please join us on our Facebook page, The Extraordinary Achievers, or on www.theextraordinaryachievers.co.uk or on 07962 397 453. See you again.